these blocks are scattered around this site, like a kid just was playing with building blocks.
Murders, mysteries, unexplained stories, and our family's crazy opinions on them all. Join us now. The Family School of Thought is in session.
Okay, everybody. Thanks again for visiting us at the School of Thought, the Family School of Thought. How's everybody doing today?
Oh,
good.
Good.
Everybody's having a good week so far.
Ready for Christmas?
It's stressful week.
Stressful week. You can
How's
see
floor looking?
Christmas tree all decorated for you guys. How about weather-wise? We are in for a heck of a storm way up here. How about you, Jess? You're in for a storm there?
Yep. We're prepared for a foot of snow.
Okay. Jess, why don't you get us started with some fun facts?
Yeah, so Mental Floss, amazing flat facts calendar. Folks, we're coming down to the last couple weeks, okay? This week, next week is our last week of Mental Floss Amazing Facts. So hold on tight because we got some fun facts coming at you.
Hopefully Santa brings you in your stocking a new calendar for next year.
I don't know of any right now, so we'll see how that goes, but maybe. So did you know moose can dive nearly 20 feet underwater in search for food?
No, I didn't know that.
No.
So not only are they're huge, they can go really far underwater. They can swim.
I know they like water because they were out in the water when I was out in Portland, Oregon.
Yep.
Those were elk, but yeah. Those weren't moose.
Yeah, moose are pretty scary, and if you see one, you should definitely run the other way.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and apparently you got to swim the other way too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and don't swim down because they'll catch you.
Wow.
So here is some, we celebrate Christmas. Other religions don't, but we do celebrate Christmas. So Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, A Holly Jolly Christmas, and Run, Rudolph, Run were all written by the same person, the same man, Johnny Marks, who is not a Christian, and he is Jewish.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting.
It is very interesting. He celebrates Hanukkah.
Yeah. So I have one more interesting fact. We were talking about, receiving a foot of snow tomorrow and Friday, Thursday, this coming week. I think it's called Omori City in Japan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that city right. They receive the largest amount of snowfall every year, as any or more than any major city in the entire planet. Each year, the citizens are pummeled with 312 inches or about 26 feet of snow on average.
Wow. I'm glad I'm not there.
That's a lot.
So I don't know how much, we get each year, but we're anticipating about a foot for the storm coming this week later. But could you imagine on average 26 feet of snow each year? That's a lot.
Wow.
A lot.
I want it.
That's in Japan, did you say?
In Japan. I think it's Omori City. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Must be like up in the mountains.
Yeah. It's a major city, so that's what at least that's what the Mental Floss calendar says. It calls it a major city. So
okay.
There you go. Those are the facts for this week.
All right. Cass, how about a song this week?
Okay. Well, last week we did a little festive one. And then because it is so close to the holidays, I don't want to do too upsetting of a one. So I'm kind of going to do a funny, creepy song. And that is It Wasn't Me by Shaggy. Mom, Dad, do you know this song?
Nope. I make no.
Sing it for me, and I might tell you. Okay,
you probably have heard it before. It's about a man who gets caught cheating on his girlfriend multiple times, and instead of confessing, even though he she catches him doing it, he says, but it wasn't me.
He got caught red-handed.
He got caught red-handed. It wasn't me. But so the whole song is about this guy constantly cheating on his girlfriend, constantly getting caught. And not only that, but then gaslighting her into believing that he didn't actually cheat on her with the girl next door.
Right.
So it's this vicious circle of their relationship and how bad it really is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's a catchy song, and people kind of, it's, you know, people sing it all the time. I think last year, Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher did a commercial for Cheetos where they sang with Shaggy about how they didn't get caught eating Cheetos.
Wasn't me.
It wasn't me. But yeah, and it's kind of creepy that like we kind of celebrate this song so much, that it was so popular. And the whole song is about not only get somebody cheating, but then manipulating his partner into staying in the relationship with him.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That was definitely an early 2000s song.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's your creepy song of the week.
Nice. Nice. Okay, good. All right. Who's up this week?
Tis I.
Tis you.
So,
Tis
Matt gave me the idea for this week's topic. I tried to get him on to do it because I know he'll do better than what I could. But today, do you guys know where I'm going with this one?
No.
It's definitely going to be a creature.
No, it's aliens.
Oh, true. Aliens are creatures.
All of our stories end up. Yeah.
So, this is not really like aliens, but that's so okay. It goes back to its temples. So this is the temple Punku. It is located near Tiwanaku, Bolivia, not Bulgaria, Bolivia in South America. So there's these they're complex temples, or like a site of what they believe used to be a temple. But this site has like baffled archaeologists for years. They just have all these questions. They can't find the answers to them. Nobody can really figure this out. So they don't know, one, how the temple got built, or how the blocks to the temple got to where they were, why it was there, how the blocks were cut. And so we'll get into like a lot of these things, but it's just, there's a lot of unknowns for this. And so it kind of goes back to, it has to be this ancient alien site that was put there for a reason, kind of the same thing of any other temple that we can't figure out how it got there. The pyramids, how did they get built? These Mayan temples, how did they get built? So it's kind of the same situation with those, but this one is, it has just baffled archaeologists, and it's baffled scientists it's one of the most incredible ancient ruins that's found in South America. But it's just one of those ones that is complexed so many people. So they believe there's a bunch of blocks, and from what I've read in stories, of course, I watched an Ancient Aliens episode on this one. That's how Matt got me in on this one. They all say in there too that these blocks are scattered around this site, like a kid just was playing with building blocks, or like the alphabet blocks kind of thing. And just they're scattered. So like, how did they tumble and fall the way that they did? And so it kind of comes down to, they believe that it was part of a temple and it got destroyed somehow. They're not sure if it just over the years fell apart, or if there was some kind of attack that destroyed this temple. But it shatters all traditional views on ancient cultures too. So there's the stones that are there have precise cuts. They're flat stones, like completely flat stones. The cuts in them are very precise, and they're like precision cut. And it's granite, so it's like a heavy rock or heavy stone rather. And they can't figure out how they got cut into block shapes, how they, and I have some pictures too, so I'll share my screen in a bit.
Yeah.
But they did, like, it just, again, it defies any kind of explanation, that like nobody can figure out how this kind of was, how these blocks were formed. And some of them are interlocking, and then you know, like some of them, they come to, like, a lot of them there are in the shape of the letter H. And they, to me, it looks like the History Channel H that you kind of see. It's like a block H, you know? So it's like, I don't know, like how it got
The exact
cut that
channel that Ancient Aliens is on, it looks like that logo. You're saying?
Yeah, I'm like, do you think that's how they got their like logo? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. But this site continues to defy countless theories, and it's put forth by mainstream scholars, historians, scientists. Like nobody can like really come to a concise theory on like what happened and how this kind of happened. So these like I said, they're the blocks. One of the blocks range in height between like 26 and like 25, 26 feet tall or long. And then they're like over 5 feet wide, and each block weighs over 100 tons. So one of the things is like they can't figure out how they were moved, and were they built, like were they chiseled or, you know, cut where they lay or where they were there, you know. But one of the things that baffles them is how were they moved, because where they're located is in an altitude of 12,800 feet. So it's like up high, which it makes it harder to like move them up, like up a hill, up a mountain, you know, like, or up that in that area. And a lot of people have said, you know, like, which kind of goes back to like the pyramid days where they used logs to like roll them around or like roll them up. But because of the altitude and where that, like where the Puma Punku is located, it's above the natural tree line, which like means that there's no trees that would grow in that area. And so to be able to use those logs, you'd have to cut down the trees, or there's nothing there to be able to be cut down to use as those like wooden, like the tree roller, you know,
right.
that kind of thing. And Matt put in on top of it, which, I mean, this is Matt's opinion on it too, but it makes sense because they're 100 tons each. You put them on those wood logs, one, the wood is probably going to break, or it's going to sink down so far into the ground that it's going to be harder to roll anyways.
Right.
But in going, like, kind of eliminating that theory for how they got there too, is that the this in, did I say this was, it's Puma Puka, it's in but this is part of Tiwanaku culture in South America. Did I say that already? Okay, yeah, sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit. So this is in the, which is a kind of like a major like city still. It's like a or it's, I don't know if it's a city, but it's a an active area still in South America. But there's no evidence in the Tiwanaku culture at that time of having a wheel. So like to have logs that would roll, or to use them as like a wheel, is the scientists and historians just can't put that together because there was no evidence of that in the Tiwanaku culture back then for that. So it so one of the theories though too is that the Puma Punku site is believed to date back to 536 AD. but a lot of historians and scientists believe that it predates that and predates the Incas back in that area. And there's a an architect, sorry, an archaeologist that did a lot of research for this site, and his research shows he believes that this has been there for 15,000 BC. So it's like thousands and thousands of years old. And so that's where it kind of stands, where like nobody can really date it, can like actually like come to a concise timeline of when these were built or when they were, placed where they are. And so it has a wide range. I in everything that I kind of read on it, it's like some are, 300 to 600 AD. Then we have the one archaeologist that dates it back to 15,000 BC. Some have like 300 BC. So there's nothing that is clear and concise with this site, which makes it, I think, that's why people are so drawn to it, is there's no real answer for anything. But with Puma Punku, like I said, they believe it was a temple that was created. But experts also argue that the site was abandoned before it was actually completely finished. And again, this was before Incas. This was before the Mayans. So this was a very complex thing. And in Tiwanaku, I have the phonetic way of saying that. So sorry, I keep looking down at that. Tiwanaku has another site with similar blocks, but their scientists and historians, archaeologists, all agree that the style of the carvings and the style of the like cutouts, I guess, of the blocks at Tiwanaku site compared to Puma Punku are made by two different people. And there is a theory that Puma Punku was created by aliens or, gods, and the site at Tiwanaku was created by humans as a way to honor the sky gods. So they kind of go hand in hand with that. And that's where like they think that humans did the Tiwanaku, but it still predates the Incas, which is kind of like the first known like natives in South America. For that. So again, it just like there's no like dates on when they can kind of figure out when these sites were built. So there's stones. So there's at Puma Punku, there's a large number of stones that are there. And then they have, like I said, they have those precise cuts, but let me see if I can pull up. So here, this is the archway to Puma Punku, and they with this archway, it's the gateway. It's called the Gateway of the Sun, and it's thought to have been the entrance to the Puma Punku temple. And at the very top, let's see if you can. I don't know if I can. Well, it takes me to a whole new site, but that right here at the top is this little guy. I don't know if you can see my.
It looks like a head and two arms.
So that is they think, or they believe that is the sun god for the or like the Tiwanaku culture, and then each of like some of it is kind of rubbed away, but there's like supposedly 50 winged men on either like total, so like 25 on each side or whatever, but of winged men. And so of course ancient aliens, with this is clear evidence that angels or aliens came down from the heavens to visit Earth. But that's let's go back to some of these other hopes. I just got out of.
Interesting.
Mhm.
And those are big stones. So how many houses are they?
You guys, are you still seeing my screen or no? Okay.
No.
I clicked out by accident. I clicked out of the thing that I was doing for the photos. But I'm trying to, sorry. I lost my train of thought because I got out of my thing. But the okay.
It was a sign that their God had come down.
Yes. So those that, the entrance, the gateway to the sun, was supposed to be the entrance to the temple, but of course the scientists on Ancient Aliens TV show says that is, their proof that aliens came down to the earth and stuff. Here is a picture of the H blocks though, and you can see where it's like these clear, concise cuts and that make the letter H. I don't think the H really means what it does to us, the letter. But
those are definitely H's.
That's
right.
insane.
But for like us, that's an H. But I was telling Matt how they didn't use our alphabet, they didn't use this.
Right.
But here's another picture, so it kind of shows the H's, and then over on the side it shows how this H block was actually cut out, and you can see on the back part of the H where it's all these cuts, like I said, were so precise. They're cut at 90-degree angle. The corners are 90, a perfect 90-degree angles, and they're the surface of them are so flat and shiny. I mean, it doesn't look like it in the pictures, but it's supposed to be shiny. And then some of them, and I believe the H blocks, I thought I saw it in the H blocks where they have holes drilled into them. And it's a perfect round hole drilled all the way through these blocks that are over 5 feet wide. So let me go up a little bit to see if I can.
Could it be possible that they're not? So we see an H because we use the alphabet, but could it be a symbol in that culture's language?
Right. And that's what I was telling Matt. I'm how do we know, what is the meaning behind? We see it as an H. There you go. Right. There's the History Channel. I guess it's not so close. But here's another thing too, another part of it too is you have these clear, concise cuts in this stone, and it's granite. And then how do you get it so it's perfect 90 degrees, and then you're getting these the indentations on there? How do you get that? How is it chiseled out of granite?
Definitely something.
Yeah. And so then this is the whole site.
15,000 BC.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where well, they don't really when it was, but one scientist or one archaeologist dates it back to 15,000 BC. So, but this is the whole site where it's these are the H blocks over on the right-hand side. There's some over on the left-hand side, but that's where it's they just said it's a little kid scattered little letter blocks all over.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a picture. Oh, there's one. Here's one of the holes that were drilled. It's a perfect hole. How did they do that? How were they able to do that? And so they again, I watched the Ancient Aliens episode, but even in the articles that I've read, it's a lot of it is there has to be some kind of ancient technology that we don't know about or we don't use anymore, that helped to create this, and to get these blocks in the shapes that they are. But I was watching the episode of Ancient Aliens, and they were showing with these cuts, you can see it on this picture too with the hole in it. just like it's like a perfect 90-degree angle at the. It's like a, you know, like a cube basically,
Right.
but that perfect 90-degree angle. But they took part of the stones, part of this granite stone from Puma Punku, and took it back to a lab and did a laser cut on it and a diamond cut, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. And the cuts were so much more like aggressive than what is still there now. And so it's like the cuts that were done to create this were even better than our best technology now. And so that was something too. And I know, I forget his name. It's Giorgio something. He's the one that I think is the most popular, like, or well-known Ancient Aliens guy. With the crazy hair. Yes, with the crazy hair. He even said when they were like talking about it, well, it could have been, you know, like the wear down from like the original cuts were a little bit harder, but because of so many years cutting it down. And the guy that was talking about it, he's like, you know, like, yeah, maybe a little bit, but the precision on the cuts are, it's unheard of without our best technology. So to like chisel something like that, it wouldn't be, it's just not, they couldn't figure out how that happened. So so this is Puma Punku, kind of going back to Tiwanaku. Tiwanaku is about a quarter mile away from Puma Punku. So they're very close, but like I said, Tiwanaku is thought to have celebrated the sky gods at Puma Punku. So two different sites they believe were built at different times by different people. One is the Puma Punku is thought to have been built by gods or aliens, and then Tiwanaku is thought to have been built by humans, like our ancient humans, as a way to honor the gods, or you know, or the sky gods is what they call them, you know. So I think on Ancient Aliens, when they say sky gods, I think they just talk about aliens most of the time with that too. But there is a theory too, going back to how they were moved, because again, that's one of the things that people can't figure out. There's a theory out there that the stones were carried by supernatural powers, but there's also one that it was carried. These were like levitated almost by the sound of a trumpet. So some kind of sound technology created them to hover and then be able to just move them that way, which kind of sounds crazy, but also makes some sort of sense, like a vibration that lifts those stones up. You don't believe it?
No. This is a conversation we had at work today. So whoever I was talking to must have seen the same show about using sound waves to move these big granite things.
Yeah. So that's what I'm like. To me though, like the sound thing, it sounds logical. It sounds scientific. You know, like it makes sense to me at least on having that. But that's what, like, this is just something that is, it has left the Ancient Aliens people, which I mean, Matt watches the show. Sometimes it drives me crazy. Sometimes it's interesting, but it's just they have no real answers to this kind of stuff, and they don't know. It's like it just kind of goes back to like, how was it built? Why was it built? And one on Ancient Aliens, they did talk about too that, you know, it was like a temple, but maybe it was a landing site for ancient alien aircraft, you know, that kind of stuff too. There is a theory too that it was a temple that was created to what they thought of to be able to create energy, which is the same as the other temple we talked about. I forget the name of that one, where they had the lake in the middle of it.
Right.
And but then they also thought, because the H's are all like exactly the same, it's they kind of have this theory that that it's like an ancient like mold, basically, where it's like it was a factory, like a temple that was, or what we call a temple, but it was really like a factory that just kind of made these like cuts, so it was just making these duplicates.
When I was looking at those pictures, I was like reminded or thinking this is kind of like a place where they made these monuments and stuff. Yeah. And then maybe people bought them and took them somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. And that's
like like I kept thinking of the place there in Corona where they make all this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. They were just all kind of there, and like people went there and got them and then took them back to their communities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense too, because that's what they were like kind of talking about, is like the H's, like they couldn't figure out, were they like hinges, or like I think they're too high, because I didn't see anywhere where it talked about like how high those H's were, but I did see on the Ancient Aliens show like some guy was like standing, and it comes like just above like hip level, so I'd say maybe like 3 feet, 3.5 feet tall, but I'm like, were they some kind of like chair, like a throne chair, or like I don't know. It just kind of
well, it looked, obviously it's an H, but they probably didn't think
right. It's not an H to
that. It's more of a decorative type,
right?
Yeah, I think it's a symbol.
A symbol,
yeah. Right? But that's what it kind of, they were kind of alluding to, is there's so many replications of that H that it had to be some kind of like factory that was just processing these, kind of like a little
well, you know how the one had like, you could see the indentions on the top. It kind of looked like one would sit on top and they would anchor into that spot.
And that's it. Yeah. And so that's what that's some of it too, is that it's like a puzzle piece. Like they were used, and then they thought, well, maybe these H's were like, they look like H's to us, but I think it's the same thing of like, you see faces everywhere, because that's what you're like coded to recognize. And so because H is part of our alphabet, that's part of our language, that's what we see. But it could just be where they were kind of those puzzle pieces on connecting to make the walls, the joints, they were like more like those joints. But that's what the precision of cutting them too, because some of the blocks are together, and when they're like the ones that are together, that are fitted together, the space is so tight that you can't even like fit a piece of paper in there. So that's another question, like that's another thing where like, how did that happen? How were they cut that to the point where they fit that perfectly together for that? And it's just like, it's flush in those areas for that. But at Tiwanaku though too, there is like, they call them statues, but they look more like a bust, or like just a head, carving in a head of like, it's carving in a stone, but it's of just like a face kind of thing. But it's really unique that there's like multiple different like cultures or races. They said in Ancient Aliens races, but they're different color stones, but different face shapes, like to kind of represent almost every culture. And how old the Tiwanaku site is too, that was something too, like how did these people know what like an Asian culture would look like? How did they know what, like a Spanish culture? I mean, that's a little ahead of its time, but like, like they couldn't figure out how they would be able to depict all these different cultures and the traditional face shapes of those cultures. And then even two of those stone faces were more of a white stone that look very similar to what we see as that stereotypical alien face, where it's like bigger, like kind of like a upside down teardrop kind of thing.
Interesting.
And then there is like a big statue. I guess, it is like a statue. It kind of looks more like a totem pole type statue of like a man. It is a man, because it's got like a mustache and a beard, which in the Tiwanaku culture, because those were like the native Southern American culture right there. They didn't have facial hair. That wasn't part of their culture. So they couldn't understand why the statue would have like a thick mustache and a beard. And to me, I can't find a picture of that statue. It's on the Ancient Aliens episode. But that statue, it's kind of like I said, it's like this like shape, I guess, of like a totem pole almost. But to me, it looked like that stereotypical, like traditional, like Asian man, like old ancient Chinese man, like the mustache, like it just it really reminded me of that. And so historians believe that it was a Sumerian, which is kind of like in Asia area, but it's like 8,000 miles away from South America, from Puma Punku. So they couldn't figure out how would they know what this culture would look like back in, like 15,000 BC or, even 500 AD. How would they know what those people would look like? And so again, they can't figure it out. But there have been artifacts that were found at the Puma Punku and Tiwanaku sites that, like bowls and, like kind of clay bowls, those kind of things that have writing on them, like hieroglyphic type writing. And they've been able to confirm that writing matches the Sumerian writing of that time. It dates back, on those artifacts, date back to 3000 BC. So how did Sumerian writing and culture come to South America? That's something that, again, it's like they can't answer these questions. They can't figure it out. They have no idea how this is happening and how that one culture is kind of moving here. I guess at that time too, we had boats and stuff, like I was assuming that people had boats back then, but like that's something too, like take a long journey, but you would think they wouldn't have motored boats that, it'd be hand rowing. So it would take a long time. So, yeah, that's like, there's not a lot of answers, but there's a lot of things that come up that just cause more questions to be asked for that. So, awesome. That's kind of all I have. There's a lot more stuff in there, but it's just, it creates more questions than answers.
Right.
It's funny because we were talking about this today, and obviously this person must have seen this same episode because we were talking about the sound.
Maybe.
And how you can move things around, and maybe you could cut stone with sound too.
And that's I think, because I was telling Matt again, like he is like fascinated with this kind of stuff, but I kind of go back to, I feel like we live in, like today in 2022, we live in this society where my son won't know how to write in cursive, so that's going to be a lost art form, basically, right. Like that's something that like his kids will never even know. They probably won't be able to read it very well. Right. So you go back to 3000 BC, there may be things that they were doing that were just easy for them. And it was a common thing.
It's a lost art form.
Right, exactly. Right. And I think it goes back to like with the Egyptian pyramids and the Mayan temples and all those things that we are fascinated by, and how did this come to be? Really, it was, to me, like maybe we just don't know how to do it anymore because we didn't need to for so long.
Right.
And now we don't know how.
What I always say about counting money, like the young kids don't have to know how to count money. They don't have to do it. If the time comes when they had to do it, they're smart enough to learn it, but they don't have to know it now. So there's no reason for them to know it now. But going back, and we kind of talked about this one time in another episode. There's a guy in Lapeer, Michigan. and there's stuff on the internet about him because I've seen it, where he could literally move. He has this like place where you can visit. It's his backyard, but there's these huge boulders, squared blocks, and he can easily move them with no effort whatsoever. And it's all about balance and he knows how to just balance them quick. He'll take like a little pebble and stick it under this one spot, and he can just move this with no effort whatsoever. So there is a technique to doing it.
Right. It's just we don't know how to do it anymore.
Right.
And I think too, like even with using water. I mean, this one I think is this Puma Punku is so unique because it's over 12,000 feet up. So the altitude is so much higher than like anything else, I think. But I think of too, like if you have your glass of water or glass of a liquid, your drink sitting on a table, but then there's condensation, that water will levitate that glass up and it'll be easy to slide around.
Well, and we've all seen that where a glass just
right. And that's what I think some of this, maybe that's what they were doing is they were, having things, although this was with Puma Punku, it was granite stone, so that's not a stone that would float, or I don't think really any of the stones would float. But I mean, I think that's something too, where you'd be able to like kind of move it easier, on that kind of things too.
They could have had some type of, not paper, but it's just some kind of material they put under it, and then the water would kind of slide it.
Right, exactly, yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. This was one of the Ancient Alien episodes that I kind of got into. But they get really into detail of like the artifacts and the statues and that kind of stuff. So, but it's a lot of everything that I read on it too. It's like there's so many questions that they just can't figure out, and it's complex to everybody. It's one of the biggest like unknown, like unanswerable kind of situations with sites.
Yeah. And I was saying today too, because there's so many of these sites all over the world. It's not like just in one spot. They're all over the world. It's scattered all over.
Right.
Obviously, at one point in time, either we were much more advanced than we are today, and something happened that wiped all that out, and then we had to start over, or somebody from some entity from some other planet or universe and put that stuff down here. It's not, we didn't do it in our knowledge we have now.
Right. And that's and I think too, I mean, I've said it before, maybe not on the podcast, but like, I feel like we're moving into the movie Idiocracy, where maybe what we deem as being an idiot and like the Idiocracy level, that movie level, we're already at that for those ancient cultures. Like we are that dumber than a box of rocks person, even though we have some high intelligence. Where we are now.
No, we're not far from that.
No, we're not.
But at some point in time, 15 million, what'd you say, 15,000 before?
15,000 BC, though. So, like,
it would have been 3,500 years ago.
Right. So,
either we had intelligence that we lost because of some event, and we had to start over, or there is people from other entities, from other places that were here before us.
Right.
There's just too much evidence that something went on before.
Right. And that's something too, like, I mean, it kind of goes back to maybe there was some kind of galactical war that happened. The cultures there, like the humans, I guess, if you want to, the life on Earth was kind of destroyed. And then, like we see these movies all the time where like the Earth is destroyed and the oxygen is compromised, and, so people have to go up and live in space. And then, they come back to, I mean, I think there's a TV show 100. It's kind of like that, where then they come back down to Earth and they think it's still a toxic environment. you know, but so maybe that's where we are now, where we're just that test rat of, is it still a toxic environment, toxic place to live?
Well, I was also thinking, like, you know, we talked about a couple weeks ago, like, you know, we are the ant farm experiment
Right.
for aliens.
Right.
So what if it's kind of like that idea of they give us something, some sort of technology that we use, and they kind of watch how we use it and then take it away to see how if we can get back to it, or will we get back to it?
Yeah.
Or like, do we need it to survive, kind of thing.
Yeah, we do all of our tests on, you know, rats and mice and stuff, but aliens do their tests on us. Circle.
Seems fair. Seems fair to me. I will say that even if it wasn't an alien thing, like clearly this place had a wide range of multicultural, like it was a hub for multicultural, like it clearly had other cultures there, which is so crazy in that time.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. You know, like that. It was. I mean, looking at the little, like, I don't want to call them statues, but they were like just the faces, statues of just faces, and it's like
what is it? Not mosaic,
right? But it's like you can see that stereotypical, what you would think, you know, of each culture's like face shapes and stuff. It's like you could,
which means that it's not like one person came and they were in this village. Like clearly, like this is like multiple people are coming from these cultures.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe it kind of goes back to the same with the age. Like we're seeing it as humans now because that's what we're like, you know, ingrained to see.
Right.
You know, we're ingrained to see a human face in a sink faucet. You know, we're ingrained to see that in a window. You know, it's just something that comes to the human brain naturally, but to recognize that shape.
Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's, you know, kind of that like, you know, tectonic plate theory of like, it was all just one place and everybody's faces look like these. And then kind of as they separated, it was regional.
Right. And maybe, and I don't know, like I didn't end up watching the entire episode, so maybe I missed some of this at the end, but maybe those were like, those faces were the first humans known on Earth kind of thing. And that's what they look like. And that's who humans all come from. I don't know.
Right. Right.
So I'm throwing that theory out. So.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's all I have on that one. Though.
The questions are endless. I mean,
that and that's what they were, you know, kind of alluding to. It's just like there's nothing that can be like a real good consistent theory. Like there's, you know, they would come up with theories, but then it would just cause more and more questions on, okay, but how do you do this? So there's, you know, I think with each temple or each thing, there's always like some questions, but there's a pretty good consistent, everybody kind of comes to the same conclusion or same theory of what it was used for or how it was built. And like even with the Egyptian pyramids, it's like we kind of have a good idea of how they were built and when they were built and, you know, like
why
who built them and why.
Do we?
We do.
No, but I mean, well, no, yes and no. We have kind of we all have a kind of a similar theory of why and when and, you know, who built them, you know. So
I don't think so. I think we've always been told that it was the Egyptians building them, but I think we're finding out now that they were there way before the Egyptians. So those Egyptians used them for different purposes, maybe. But I don't know. We talked about this one other time that they were really far older than that. The Egyptians just found them and used them for their own purpose.
And that was something too, kind of going back to the Puma Punku ones though too, that the people that were living there when like the leaders, the chief of those native people would consistently say, we did not build these structures, we didn't build these blocks, our gods built them for us. So that was something too, where like, you know, some of the histories, it's like, oh, like with the Egyptians, oh, we built them, you know, like the Egyptians.
Right.
But with this in Puma Punku, the first known like cultures were saying, no, we did not build them. They didn't take credit for them at all.
Yeah.
Which is another
also
thing about this one too.
Right, right. And it's also interesting that with the Egyptian temples and the pyramids, we can clearly see, like, even if they didn't build it for these purposes, we can clearly see like they built it for the purpose of burial grounds, worship grounds.
Right,
You know,
exactly, yeah.
or like in the pyramids we talked about in, I think, Burma, you know, it was like a medicinal place where
Right.
these structures, like, there's no clear point to them. There's
Right.
no, like,
Well,
yeah, like the doorway is like an entry to a temple, but there's nothing beyond that archway.
Right.
I think we talked about this one time, and I don't know whose show it was, but these pyramids were really machines that created energy. They weren't temples, they weren't burial sites, they were machines. They were just used for burial sites and temples because they were already there.
Right.
Right, but that's what I mean. Like, we can clearly see a purpose there, like whether it was when they were energy machines or once they were used for these temples. But with this structure, it's just such a scattered area, and it's like these molds. So there's no clear indication of what exactly they were doing at this point.
Right, and that's what, like,
it looks like to me. Definitely, to me, I'm looking at those pictures, thinking, well, they made those stones and those things, and people or something came and got them and took them to their building sites and built things with them.
Right.
But then we would see them in other places, though.
And there, I know too.
We would see them in other places.
Yeah, and
if they were taken somewhere.
I want to say, oh shoot, I forget. But with the Puma Punku though too, there's like a oh shoot, I'm like blanking on, what do you put, a foundation? I'm like blanking on the word foundation. There's like a foundation there though too. So it's like, it looks like there was like a foundation for like a temple, and then these were going to be like the walls, but it just never got completed.
It never got completed.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to look up the spelling of Tiwanaku.
I mean, I gotta say,
it probably
H's in any kind of structures anywhere else. Not that I'm an expert.
Could
those shows, and I've never seen that H symbol.
Could it be sort of like how we use rebarb in construction? Like, it's basically like the center of kind of what we would pour like cement. Like, so we use rebarb to basically like make sure cement stays where it's supposed to.
Yes.
So maybe these like things were basically supposed to be like stacked one on top of the other, make like basically a structure, and then you basically build around it. So they're like in the structure.
It's possible, but it's cut very precise. Doesn't seem like they'd go through all that if they were just going to cover it up.
Here,
who knows?
Maybe. I was also thinking maybe they weren't cut. I think we talked about this, that there was a mold, like a cut mold, but maybe it was like an early version of like almost like a silicone mold, where like you pour something into it and it's already in that shape.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to.
This was granite stone, right?
Yeah, this was granite. I was trying to share my screen again. There we go. Because I was looking up the Tiwanaku. I wanted to show you guys that stuff too. Come on. So let me go down a little bit. So these pictures, these are like the stone heads that are in there.
Oh.
Interesting.
And there's like a bunch of them. It's not just like one or two. It's like they're like throughout. So here's another picture.
Well, that kind of looks like a
so like it's like
mausoleum. Then.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, like a burial site. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. mean, here's another. This was Tiwanaku. So like it goes like these faces go like all the way around it. And here's Tiwanaku. Like this is how big it is. And those faces go around the entire thing. And I think this is the statue, but it's not a very good picture of, where the Sumerian. That's not the one that they showed on Ancient Aliens, but that looks like what it is. It looked better on Ancient Aliens.
I agree with you, Mom. It looks like a mausoleum. Like this looks like a burial site.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that's
where
what
they would basically
was.
Carve the faces of the people, and each face is basically like somebody's memorial.
Yeah, maybe that would make sense. I mean, that makes a good theory for that.
Like it reminds me a lot of, gosh, what is the culture? But they have, I think it's Japanese, maybe, I don't know, but there's like those like 1,000 sculpted soldiers that like were uncovered like probably like 20 years ago, where it was just like this mass statues of soldiers.
Yeah, so this is Tiwanaku. That must be the statue, but on Ancient Aliens, you could clearly see like the mustache and the beard and stuff. So I don't know. So here's a good one though too. This is where you have like a human face and then the alien face.
Yeah.
And the white stone. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. I think a lot of this stuff is like these cultures are so like it's just like we don't know, and you can't
go up to where it says ancient crypts. Is that what I'm reading?
Oh yeah, right here, Tiwanaku cultures. Well there, so I mean that might be because look at then there's the two H's and then there's like a upside down U in the middle. So maybe that's what it was.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah, maybe it's like an ancient burial ground type of thing. Look at
I didn't even see the H until you pointed it out.
The family school thought we solved it.
Well, obviously not if this is called, ancient crypts.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That doesn't even say. It doesn't say that.
No, it didn't say that. I thought it did, and she pulled it up, and I could read it better. I'm like, oh, it doesn't say crypts.
No.
But still, this reminds me of like a company that would make monuments for burials, and this is just where they made them, and then they make
And there were on Ancient Aliens though, of course, like there was that like were these positioned, as like a marker to guide aliens or line up with the stars, but even that was something that couldn't be really confirmed. Like nothing really was there to like line up for that. So like we're here like the gateway to the sun, like I kind of see, I'm looking at this right here, it kind of looks like the sun comes in it at some point, but I don't
and that could have also been it could have also been a very ancient version of a clock,
right, yeah.
Like when it comes between the doorway, it's a certain time, obviously. Or even a calendar. Well, even a calendar, like this when it comes, because I think in New York, there's like once a year, there's like basically like the way the buildings line up, like the sunset will basically come straight down these two buildings.
Right.
And so maybe it's like a calendar of sort of like when the sun goes through these doors, it's a certain time of year.
Right. Yeah. Right. We used to use sundials, so that makes sense. Yeah.
All these different arches here are in one area.
This is all the same one. It's just the same one over and over. I'm just kind of scrolling.
They look different.
I think So I did see where, oh, that one, this one is a little bit, well, maybe that's the opposite
Could be the back.
side. Yeah. But I did see where it, like here, it's like collapsed, you know, a little bit. So I think that they fixed it up and kind of got a bit. Oh,
Well, you can see it when you go back to the picture. You can clearly see like the crack in the
right
restored one.
Yeah. So here's that like a kind of closer up of the sun god.
Wow, that's like super detailed.
Yeah, and that's what they were saying too. Like the cuts to make these like 50 winged men and then the sun god guy, like it's just they're so concise and so like just so precise on those details that like for us to do that today, we would need a laser cutter to be able to do that. And
well, you got to remember, like this was people's entire career. Like that was what they did for a living was, you know, mastering this, and they had to do like apprenticeships and stuff like that.
That is something true that we should probably think about too. Is that like back then, that's all that they did, and it took as long as it took. Where
that
for
was
us,
your life doing that monument,
right.
We want immediate
results,
yeah. So, right, we're impatient people. Yeah, so this must be the back of it.
Yeah, because that crack is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which says, I mean, look at the holes on the top, and then
like what do you think those were for?
Probably urns of grains or something. I don't know.
Or urns in general, you know, put up like like Jesse, like you said, like urns of grain, like some kind of like not sacrifice, but basically like a gift to the gods, basically. Like you put the gift to the god there.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Where, you know, once a year you would go give the god their...
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
When it's going to go through the doorway, when the sun's going to go through the doorway, you present it with a gift. That makes a lot of sense.
Somewhere. Now we are solving.
Yeah, see?
Yes.
The family school of thought, solving mysteries since 2022. 2021. When did we start this?
21. Well, 22.
When the sun shines on it, maybe that face it showed a dimension going out. So maybe.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, you know, like maybe it's the gateway to the sun, but maybe it's like a portal to another universe,
another world,
wormhole, or time travel, you know. So
Stargate universe.
Yeah.
Huh.
So there you go. That's Puma Punka.
There you go.
That's interesting.
And Puma Punka and Tiwanaku. I can't ever remember how to say that one, but 2 different sites.
Connected. Are they really far apart, or is it
they're a quarter mile apart? So they're
quarter mile. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But like I said, they're about a quarter mile apart, and they're very, very similar in like the stuff. But there's a clear, you know, it's like a copy. Tiwanaku is like a copycat of Puma Punka, and they're like historians they say, you know, like you can see that Puma Punka is like the more concise, like the original kind of thing. That's where there's a theory that was built by the gods, where Tiwanaku was built by humans as a gift to the gods to worship them. So
I can see that. I definitely can see that.
Oh, I did write it down. So the sun guy, the god on the top of the gateway of the sun.
Yeah.
I wrote down Viracocha. So I did it phonetically. So I think that's how you say it. Viracocha. Viracocha is the name of that like sun god that they worshipped. That was at the very end of my notes.
How do you pronounce that again? I'm sorry.
Viracocha. I think that's how you pronounce it. I only wrote it phonetically, and that's what I wrote. So I think that's correct. I did it quickly because when I was watching Ancient Aliens, I was trying to like write down how they were pronouncing it too. So but there you go.
Very good, guys.
Yeah, I like that one.
Good story. Or Matt.
Snaps to Matt for giving me that story.
Of course, he could have
joined.
Thanks to
Matt.
I tried. I said, you know what? Maybe you should just join tonight and do this one.
I tried to talk Jordan into joining as a host.
Yeah.
As a guest. Not a host, guest.
Wow. All right. Well, anything else you guys got to add to the story? Or any questions for Jess? Well, that was a good show. That was very interesting. Makes me want to go watch the
Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
I don't know what the episode was called, but I'm sure you can find it if you put Puma Punka.
Puma Punku, yeah.
Yeah, it's Puma, like Puma, space, or I guess I saw it both ways, but Puma, Punku, Punku. Maybe Pumka. No, I can't remember. I should probably know that. I just didn't.
Well, Cass will have to put that in our header when she.
Yeah, I'll do the research.
I feel like it's 2 U's, but let me get back up there. Yeah, I was right. Puma, Puma, Punku, Punku.
Punku.
Yeah. I had myself all confused right there. And I don't know how to spell Tiwanaku. I just did the phonetic on there so I wouldn't forget how to say it.
Right. Okay, guys. Well, it's been a fun night. I hope everybody had a great Christmas. Is it New Year's yet?
Yeah, I guess I did my fun fact this week about Christmas, but because we're recording this before Christmas, but it won't get posted until after. So
I think this will get posted on the 29th, if I'm not incorrect. Okay. This will be the 29th of December.
Well, everybody have a great New Year's. Stay safe. Stay close to home. And we'll see you next week. Sound good?
All right.
Okay, bye, everybody. Love
bye.
You. Bye.
Peace.
I did learn something else this week. You can go onto Alexa and say, Alexa, play the Family School of Thought, and our podcast comes up.
Oh, how cool. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Oh,
listeners,
Alexa, stop. Alexa was going to tell us.